5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So welcome back to Virtually Shackleton 2020. We began the morning with a quick stop at the Shackleton statue, so it seems very appropriate that we start the afternoon as well, return to that very same theme. And I'm delighted to have us there this afternoon. We have Lucina Russell, the Arts Officer for Kildare County Council, in conversation with the sculptor of that magnificent statue, Mark Richards. Welcome, Lucina. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Seamus.
Thanks, Nick.
We got a freeze.
We might have a little bit of a technical hitch with Seamus, so maybe we'll just start on, Mark. Our time is short this afternoon.
Cool.
So welcome everybody who's tuning in. I'm delighted to be here, and I think it's a real privilege in the circumstances that we have with the pandemic, the opportunities that it creates, and to get an opportunity to look inside your studio, Mark, which I'm really excited about. So thanks for facilitating that. I believe you've been polishing all morning.
I've been polishing. Well, I've had to mess the place up a little, actually, Lucina, just to make it look really authentic. So
make
that
it like you're
was
working. Very good, very good. So look, Mark, we might just launch straight in. And Seamus mentioned already there was a little tour of the sculpture this morning, but just in terms of anybody who doesn't know what this project is about, or the Shackleton Sculpture. So it was a commission that Kildare County Council, there was an approach from the Athy Heritage Centre and Museum, I think it's probably around 2014 initially, but there was a very tight deadline in terms of what we were working towards, and that was to commission a permanent piece of sculpture, a representative piece of Ernest Shackleton that would be unveiled on the 30th of August 2016, which would be the 100th anniversary, the exact date when Shackleton rescued his crew from Elephant Island. So that was non-negotiable in terms of the date. That was very important. And it was going to be a permanent piece that was going to be located somewhere around the Shackleton Heritage Centre and Museum in Athy. So obviously you applied for the commission, and you're going to talk us through some of the components of the commission through our short interview today. But we're going to have a little bit of conversation first, and then if it's okay, you're going to maybe talk us through some examples that will better describe, I suppose, the process as to how you made the Shackleton piece, using some examples from the Shackleton maquette, I suppose, and some current projects you're working on. Yeah. Can I just ask you, Mark, in terms of how you went about approaching the commission when the call out was there? And I mean, there's lots of call out for commemorative sculptural pieces, but was there something that caught your eye about this one, or had you any awareness of Shackleton and his legacy?
Well, I think what really enthused me, and I'm not saying it just because this is the Shackleton weekend or autumn school, but when I was researching, I mean, I was drawn to the piece to start with because of the famous Sergeant Jagger sculpture of Shackleton, which has always been a very iconic statue in London, and it's, you know, it really tells the story. And so the idea of being part of something that was continuing that particular tradition was a great pull for me from a sculptural point of view. But also the story. I mean, you know, we've sort of grown up on the story of Shackleton, and to be given the opportunity to portray him was just too good an opportunity to miss, really.
Yeah, and one of the things, Mark, that I felt about the commission, because I suppose I was given the task of being project manager on it, and you were obviously the sculptor that was awarded the commission, but I did feel this big sense of responsibility. A lot of people were going to be very interested in this. This was one we absolutely needed to get right. Yes. Obviously, I mentioned we had a very specific timeline that was really non-negotiable. But in terms of having a piece that, the fact that there is an autumn school dedicated to Shackleton here in Athy and other things around the world, that we, just in terms of that responsibility, did you feel that sense of responsibility to get this right? And in terms of creating a piece that people would feel was an authentic representation of a man?
Once I'd met everybody, once I'd met you lot, basically, yes, very much so. At the autumn school, because part of the autumn, it coincided with the autumn school when I first attended, but really as an introduction to the to Athy and to the Heritage Centre and all the, you know, the great community that you've got around the Heritage Centre about Shackleton, just happened to coincide with the timing of the commission. So as part of the research, I went there and meeting as many people as I possibly could, and the welcome I got there. Really, at that stage, I was kind of an anonymous stranger, and it was remarkable how kind and warm and interesting it all was, actually. And so when you get an idea of the community of people, so basically it really generates something else, and that was really important to me. So that visit was a real, and then meeting, Jonathan Shackleton, Alexander Shackleton, Seamus, Kevin. I don't think I met you at that on that particular one, Lucina, because I'm not sure we were allowed to meet you.
No.
Arts officer, so I had to keep. So I had to pretend. I had to pretend like I couldn't find you then. But that was very inspirational to me, and seeing the enthusiasm of the Autumn School and the fact that this community was, growing there, which was it was great. I just really wanted to be a part of it.
Okay, and Mark, when we were selecting the artwork, there was a selection panel, as you mentioned, there's processes involved. But two things that really struck me when we were selecting your artwork, and I suppose they're small details in one way, but I think they're big parts of the commission. One is the plinth that he's standing on. So he's standing on an unsteady piece of an iceberg, which is limestone, and he's facing south. And I know when we read your proposal, and I thought, God, that's so smart. Of course he's facing south. But just in terms of those little details and the fact that he was on unsteady ground, I don't think your piece would have worked, or certainly wouldn't have worked as well if he was standing on an ordinary rectangular plinth where he was more lofty in terms of height. I just think it would have been a different piece. But they were two pieces that really struck me about the commission.
Thank you. Yeah, it was obviously important. That the reason that should I talk you through very quickly the maquettes, because I've lined them up how the idea developed. And so over the first idea I had, which was very different to how it turned out, was to have him at the age that he left Athy, and have him as a child looking south as if he's looking into his future, which is. Well, I thought so, and he's also holding a little wooden boat here, and I think he had a whole bit of driftwood that he used to float down the stream. So there was something very, like a child looking into his own future. That was the first idea, but obviously it would be not recognisably Shackleton, and I think it's a very nice piece, but I think it needed to develop. So then the idea of the unsteady ground came along as a way of. For a start, being on the deck of a boat, I wanted to invoke that, but also so there's the sort of boat image here. This is one, and here he was. The arms have fallen off now, but here he was kind of looking into a sextant type thing, and then the kind of rocky, unsteady ground started materializing as an idea, and this came about because. I was trying to imagine what it would be like all the time on that kind of surface, not knowing whether there's a crevasse underneath you, and for months on end, that sense of uncertainty. And I liked. So what I tried to do is make him a kind of his sense of determination and resolve contrasted against the very uncertain circumstances. So that was really about his character in relation to the kind of symbolic nature of the world that he was inhabiting, of the uncertainty of that world. And and you really, with all our modern communications, imagine really getting into the idea of how that would have been to have no connection whatsoever with home, with really pretty much any kind of developed part of the world. You're out there really in the middle of nowhere, as they were for so long. So I wanted to get something of that, and then contrast that with his sense of steadfastness, really. So I think that was the final maquette of that idea. So it's quite straightforward, quite simple, but I think quite effective as well. And then that developed into the more detailed piece here. So that's the kind of development through maquettes and things. So that's how the idea came out. And then from there, the idea is one thing. It's really important to get the idea right, and it's got to feel really good, and you've got to be excited by it. It's got to be something that can carry you through, which is a really quite a long and arduous process to get to the final statue. That idea of it just being a few % of inspiration against the perspiration is about right. But if the idea is not strong enough, it won't carry you through that very involved process. And I mean, would this be a good time to talk through the process of how I make a statue?
Yeah, actually, there's one other thing I want to ask you just about the plinth, Mark, because I'm just conscious, like, we're here today by the wonders of technology, and just the fact that you made the Shackleton piece in England, and it was transported, and I was actually thinking by boat. So Shackleton made his journey to Athy, some of the journey on boat anyway, so I thought that was quite symbolic. But just the plinth was actually made by McKeown Stone in Stradbally, closest here to in Athy. And as far as I remember, you sent them drawings about what you wanted. So when you came to Athy to install the piece, the plinth was already there. And by the wonders of technology and communication, when that piece arrived, it was literally being put onto a piece of stone that they had created elsewhere. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. And you can imagine if the positioning of the statue on a sloping piece, it was very important that the statue had that slight inclination of unsteadiness. So if it had been slightly, a few degrees off to the back or the front, just wouldn't have worked. So I don't know how McKeown Stone did it actually so accurately, because I sent them, I sent them what I could, and with the idea of the piece, and they just really ran with it. Actually, it was great. I didn't have to. I did nothing. I mean, it was just there, and it was perfect.
Yeah, but I just think some of the, the backstory to this, I just, reflecting on preparation today, I just really enjoyed remembering all of that again. So Mark, you're going to just talk us through the stage. Once you get the maquette, like you've showed us there, what next?
So when you've got the idea, and the idea is formulated into a maquette, which is essentially a three-dimensional sketch, then and the idea is strong enough, you feel the idea can carry you through and it'll carry the piece forward. Then there's the process of making the thing, and so I work in a particular way, which is it's all just fairly straightforward actually, but it's just a procedure. So I'm going to talk you through the making of a piece that I've got now in a really good stage to demonstrate in the studio. This piece is going to go of Bill Gannon, who's going to be in Kildare. So he's a Gaelic footballer, in 1929 it's set at. So I've produced, as you know, produced the maquette, and got the commission based on that, on the idea. So what I do then, we're now at this stage. We're at the post maquette stage, and the making of the statue. So the first thing I use essentially, how best to describe this. So the first thing I do is find a model. This was tricky over lockdown because there was. I couldn't really have anybody in the studio, so I had an assistant who had a brother who was isolated, and so I had him stand. He was just the right size, and she took the measurements. The assistant took the measurements, so it was all very correct and all a bit weird. But so the first thing I do is stand the person on a piece of paper. So I'm going to whip through this quite quickly. That piece of paper's got crosshairs on it. Okay, you can see that. So I'd stand somebody there like that, and then take photographs of them to see how the body moves. This sort of thing, this kind of thing, whatever the piece is doing based on the maquette. So then I've got a series of photographs with a piece of paper underneath it with these crosshairs on. From there, I make a sort of dummy figure, like a mannequin figure. Now, this is not a finished piece of sculpture, but this is a life-size piece that I use as my kind of reference. So because everything's life-size, it means that if we're using clothes, I can pin clothes onto this, I can cling film it, put clothes on, I can cast hands to see what they do. So it's a kind of reference figure. Importantly, we've got crosshairs on the bottom here, and that references my clay figure to the original photographs of the live piece. So here, for example, so Bill Gannon is going to be holding a football in one hand and the Sam Maguire Cup in his other hand, and this creates, I think, this lovely triangular composition. So I've got my composition worked out, and now it's a matter of making sure that everything proportionally fits and works. So in this case, we've mocked up a cup size here. We've got hands cast to give me some idea of what a hand would do in that situation, and everything is proportionally correct in terms of life. if we come, Grace, actually I can do this now. Side here. So what I'm looking for particularly at the moment is this sweep up here. Okay, so you can ignore all the details. This is not about details. It's all about movement. Okay, so this is the. It's quite odd talking to kind of just to a camera, but I'm imagining all those beautiful people in the autumn school all sitting there and looking up and.
Imagine proportions are very important too, Mark.
Yeah, so the proportions of this, so I'm not particularly interested at this stage in sort of the bulk of it all. It's much more to do with the movement. So I'm, so as soon as this is right in terms of the proportions and the movements, I can then use this. You see these lines on it? I can then use this to create, see I've drawn lines here. This is for the framework for the large one. So the next stage after making this kind of mannequin piece is to then enlarge it to full size. So I remember the crosshairs business. You've got the crosshairs on the original, where I took my live model from. Crosshairs on the below the statue, and then we've got crosshairs here on the full size. So I can essentially, from using what I've got there, I can then increase that size to whatever I want by essentially just increasing everything by the same percentage in terms of proportions. Does that make sense? So then those lines that I've got on that clay, I can then create an armature. So I know that this armature is going to go right through the middle of the form. And then, and so there's a lot of welding goes on at this stage. So this is all going to be fixed. If you come around here, Grace, and see, this is all the weight of a sculpture. It's taken on what's called the back iron, which is fixed, on this case, is fixed to the wall. And so there's no weight taken on the legs down here. It's all just, it's all supported from behind itself, which gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of making things sort of rhythmic and airy. With the case with this, because one of the issues with this is making sure that this cup is right. So this is removable, this cup, and this can go onto a jig and be made approximately circular. So there's a lot. All this engineering is kind of now fixed and ready to go. And the next stage of this is. Does that all make sense, Lucina?
It does. It does. I'm just conscious of time, Mark. So maybe we'll.
Nearly there.
Are we?
The next stage is is all modelling the clay. So it's just all these things here are to hold the clay in place. They're called butterflies. And so this gives me a lot of flexibility at this stage still in terms of my in terms of the sculpture. And that's
so that can build up to the full. That one is a 1.5 time life-size piece.
This is about 1.35. It works out at.
Okay, so all that is built up then, the actual piece in clay, and then you take a model of it in. There's a bit of a positive, negative.
Yeah, then we take a mold, and then it goes to that mold goes to the foundry, and there you are.
Okay, I think that Seamus might be coming back in.
You're on, Seamus.
Hello.
Kieran.
Mark, Lucina, how are you?
Good.
That was a lovely tour. Well done to Mark's assistant there. They gave us some great imagery there of Mark's workspace and all the tools he uses to execute those fantastic sculptures. I was just curious, Mark, someone asked a question about your current piece of work there for Kildare Town. Where are you at? What stage are you at with that, or how long off is it? I presume the COVID is obviously affecting that whole process of that statue being finalized.
Yeah, it has been affecting things. It's mainly because it's affecting lots of other stuff. So everything has been putting pressure on all sorts of places. There's foundries stopped working and all manner of things. And a lot of it is fine. I can't, over the lockdown, I do everything myself, and that's quite unusual. So everything has got a bit, has become quite slow now. But anyway, I'm getting there. This is the, so this is this basically everything's in place now, Seamus, and the armature's there, the movement's there, everything's ready, and now it's just a matter of modelling. I reckon there's probably a month of clay modelling now.
I suppose in this case, it's thankful that it's, I mean, with the Shackleton piece, as I mentioned at the start, we had a very specific date. And I mean, it would have been such a shame to have missed the anniversary. So thankfully with the Squires Gannon piece, there isn't that pressure of time. So
yes, that's really good news. This is really good news. I mean, over the lockdown was, you know, for me, life doesn't really change in the lockdown because I work alone a lot of the time. But a lot of my support systems, you know, moulders, foundries, assistants, kind of, you know, and also materials, you know, things were just closed. So anyway, we're catching up now.
Just one more question I had in from the Facebook. There was someone was aware of your commission for Roger Casement in Dunleary. They're curious. I think that was due to be installed at this stage, I presume. Was it? Am I correct in that, Mark?
Yeah, that's been there's various hitches on that. It's a bit of a saga, but the thing is, the piece is cast now and it's ready to go. We're just waiting for some structural issues to be.
And that's quite large. It's more than one. What size is the Roger Casement statue? That's much bigger than 1.5 life size. Am I correct in that?
Well, he was very tall. It's about 1.5, but actually because he's very tall, it seems larger. It's also got a sort of sub-plinth on it, but the whole edifice is going to be like 8 meters high, I think.
Wow,
it's quite scary, because, you know, you're putting something up there, you don't really know what it looks like until it's up there. So we're doing everything we can to get everything just right for that.
Could I ask a question? Mark, just on your shelf there where the maquettes are, you have the miniature bronze of the Shackleton piece.
I've got a wax version of that. I can show you. This would be the, I haven't actually got any of the bronzes there here, but this is.
We just have a mention for that, and just the thought process behind it. Seamus might like to say something about it as well. So how many of those were made?
We've got, they're all made to order, and I think it's an edition of 50, and I think we're so basically when we've got pieces on display in various places, and then we tend to cast to order rather than cast the lot in one go. So I do like there's about 23 left, I think. But this is a wax.
They're wonderful pieces.
This is the wax before it goes to the foundry. So so this is a wax positive that goes through into the sort of lost wax investment process. It's quite good. So
just to explain, the maquettes were commissioned as a fundraising for the museum, for the development of the museum. So as Mark mentioned, there are a few still left to be ordered. So it's a wonderful piece to own. It's limited, only 50 copies only. More than 30 are already sold at this stage. So if anybody's interested in acquiring a maquette, they should just email the museum info@shackletonmuseum.com. We'll be happy to have a piece organised for them.
I think it's very exciting. It's going to go worldwide. You know, I mean, I know there's been international interest in the commission as it was, but the smaller pieces as well. I suppose it's adding another legacy piece to the story of the commission.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, Mark, Lucina, we have to let you go. Unfortunately, time is pressing on, but that was a wonderful piece. It was fantastic to see the place where Mark worked and also the thought process behind his work as well. And Lucina, thank you very much. Very much appreciate you hosting that for us.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Best of luck with it.
Very much, and enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Hi guys, it's Mary Deavy joining from Dublin. Look, when you're running an international conference, it's inevitable that occasionally a few things go wrong. And every year, no matter what happens, you guys always pull it out of the bag. So after 2 decades of hearing how heroes like Amundsen, Crean and Shackleton adapted to their challenging circumstances, it's no surprise really how well you've adapted this time around. So congratulations on another fantastic school, and I can't wait till we're all back together in O'Brien's for an almighty session. Looking forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rob Stevenson, sitting now in the library of the Antarctic Circle in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. I first attended the Shackleton Autumn School in 2006. I've been back every year since and will miss not being there this year enormously. Virtual attendance is fine, but it's not the same. How can you enjoy a pint at O'Brien's virtually? To see some illustrated reports on past Athys, go to our website at www.antarctic-circle.org/Athy.htm. See you Saturday.
Okay, we'll be back in about four or 5 minutes time, or a little bit longer possibly. That's the piece on the Antarctic Treaty, and that's where we'll have Bob Headland in conversation with our Minister Malcolm Noonan. Back shortly.